Hi there, and welcome to the Inspired Podcast with Dylis, Guyan. And this is the place where people who sell to bigger businesses discover how to attract, convert, and retain more of their ideal clients without any of those nasty, sleazy, pushy sales tactics. And once again, I have a fantastic guest for you today, the one and only, the inimitable Tony J. Hughes. And I'm thrilled to have you with us here this morning, Tony. And I know it's evening for you there in Australia. So let me just give a little bit of your background so people have got context of who you are and what you've done. So Tony has 30 years of sales leadership experience and holds personal and team sales records that have never been broken. And that is a huge achievement and a great accolade to Tony. He's ranked by Top Sales magazine as the most influential person in professional selling in Asia Pacific, and he teaches Modernize selling within the MBA program at the University of Technology in Sydney. Tony is also an award-winning blogger and the most read LinkedIn author globally on the topic of B2B sales leadership. And he has more than 200,000 followers of his blog. And Tony's first book is a business bestseller. And I just happen to have it here. The Joshua Principle. And I got to say that this is one of my top 5 best sales books that I have ever read. So thank you for that, Tony. And his next book, in fact, is set for publication in, is it the beginning of January 2018, Tony?
Yes, so this Christmas, January 2018, it's called Combo Prospecting, and it's being published by the American Management Association.
Fantastic. And I know Tony has a really great list of clients, which include Salesforce, Oracle, LinkedIn, Findex, Schneider Electric, BAE Systems, Red Hat, New Zealand government, and I could go on. He speaks at conferences internationally in London and the USA for Salesforce World Tour in 2017. And in fact, Tony, it was at the conference in London that we first met last year. And we had a great conversation. And I'm absolutely delighted to have you with us today. And I know that one of the things you talk about is moving away from this interrupt and push method of selling to attract and engage. And you kind of encapsulate this in modernize the way you sell. So could you just put some context around that? Tell us what you mean by modernizing the way you sell and why that's important.
Yeah, thanks, Dylis. And I feel like it's all downhill after an introduction like that. So, I mean, to me, what it takes to succeed today in selling is blending old school and new school together. There's this amazing paradox in selling at the moment in that it has never been easier to sell on one hand, and yet there's never been a higher failure rate for sellers in B2B selling in the history of the world. And it's really incredible because when you think about it, we've got the most powerful self-weeding garden as an online database for prospects in the form of LinkedIn. So our ability to research organizations, identify the power base, find those individuals, even get their mobile phone or cell number to find a warm path to them through an introduction with somebody else. So our ability to research as sellers and identify the right people and get to them has never been easier. And yet people have never been failing at higher levels. And one of the reasons that is the case is that buyers are increasingly deadened to all of the outreach that's being run by sales and marketing organizations. So to me, what modernizing our approach really means is honoring timeless principles that have always been needed to succeed in sales. And as an example of that, we know that relationships are important, and we know that all business is done at the speed of trust. So we need to be able to build trust, and we can start that process online. And the reason that's possible is 3/4 of potential buyers that we run outreach to 3/4 of them will research us before choosing to engage. So, for example, if we set our LinkedIn profile up instead of being an online CV, but instead being a personal branding microsite where we really start to set the agenda around the conversations that we can have with people and the value that we can provide, we can blend old school and new school together in providing value for people. That's how people can modernize and really start to deliver the level of efficiency that they need to sell, because some of the trends that are going on out there is that average deal size is getting smaller for organizations, and yet the effort required to sell is really the same or even worse. The number of people involved in bigger organizations for them to achieve consensus to make a buying decision is increasing, not decreasing. So for sellers to really cope with that, their sales quota goes up every year, yet average deal size is going down. They must get good at being able to break through with organizations. It's the only way that they can be successful.
Yeah, indeed. And are you finding, though, that we still have this situation? You know, you're talking about it's never been easier to find information about clients, to be able to research your clients. And yet I'm finding personally that people are still not doing it. They're not researching. They're still going in leading with product.
Yeah, that's very true. And one of the reasons is people have just need to drive a huge level of activity in their own minds for them to be successful. And yet the reality is we don't have a shortage of prospects. We have a shortage of hours in the day to go be successful. So we need to get good at researching and going deeper, finding a way to create greater value for clients and drive up average deal size. It's critically important, and it staggers me the number of sellers that don't do basic research before they meet with somebody. Even when they go for a sales interview for a new role, I'm on a number of boards, and I'll often say to the line manager that's hiring a salesperson, I'll say, let's get into your own LinkedIn profile and let's see which of the people coming today to be interviewed have done their research on you. Because if they're not going to research you as their potential new employer, how in the world can we expect them to research the people they're going to try and go and sell to when they're working for us?
Yeah, exactly. And so could you just give us some examples, Tony, of relatively easy ways to do research that will arm sellers and position them as that first step of being the trusted advisor, because the potential buyer can see that they understand them as a client, they understand the world in which they operate.
Yeah, so when we do research, we need to do pragmatic research. A lot of people get bogged down in researching. It's like when you say to them, you need to embrace the principles of social selling. They don't say this out loud, but inside they go, great, now I can be busy all day and not have to make any phone calls.
Yeah.
Which is a giant mistake. The phone is critically important today still. And in the same way, if you say you need to do research before you call people, you find them endlessly researching again rather than jumping on the phone and driving outreach. So when we research, it really needs to be in 3 areas. We need to research the industry of the customer, the customer organization itself, and then the individual. And that's one of the reasons it's very important for anybody in business, the business selling, if they're large enough, to structure their sales organization around geo verticals. Because if you have a level of domain expertise around the industry, you just need to do that once. Yeah. And then you'll know that there's common problems that companies have in that industry. Then you just do some easy, simple, pragmatic research on the business and then research the individuals you're driving outreach with.
Yeah. And of course, this can all be held in a central point. It could be put into a hub, couldn't it? If you're talking about industry research, so that everyone in the company can access that.
Yeah, I mean, every organization should, in my view, if they're in B2B selling, should absolutely have LinkedIn Sales Navigator, because that's a great tool for building sales funnel, for researching the individuals you'll drive outreach to. And then they also need to make sure that they have a CRM, so they create a single source of truth about customers and prospects. And then obviously with collaboration tools where they can share information easily, you can put up pages that create that level of domain knowledge. You make sure you know who your case studies are, so you can provide real examples of where you've delivered actual business value.
And another issue that I see is, and you've just mentioned it, that it's critical that they move to the phone and use the phone for outreach. And I see this declining massively, that people are busy, as you've just said, doing the research or they're on social media. And it's nearly like an excuse for them not to pick up the phone. And it's as if it's become a red hot brick. It's like I just can't do this. I can't do it. So what's behind that, Tony? What is stopping people? Is it because they're becoming, and I say this with love, but busy fools and kidding themselves that they're doing the right thing? Or is it because they're not confident with what to say?
Well, human nature is such that none of us like rejection. So everybody worries about being rejected, no matter how much bravado they push out there. And then you add to that we've got a lot of millennials coming into the workplace, and they've grown up to be digital native, and their natural instincts are to message people on social platforms rather than actually call them. But here's the thing: the fact that everybody else is jumping into social, using email, in-mail, using social to try and drive outreach is the very reason we need to go back to the phone. Everybody has at least one mobile phone or cell phone. I was on a train this morning going in to see one of my clients today, and just standing across from me on the train was a gentleman with his mobile phone. So he had it there, and he was looking at it, and in his top pocket in his suit he had another mobile phone. So clearly he has one for work and one for personal. I actually use a plug-in for LinkedIn called Lusha, Lusha. It's an Eastern European word that means grandmother. The idea is the grandmother in the village always knew who you needed to go talk to. But it's a great tool just for sourcing cell phone numbers. So getting back on the phone is how you can reach people, because they're bombarded on social platforms and in emails. So yes, I agree, they need to get back on the phone. And I jokingly say people treat the phone like it's covered with spiders.
Yes.
So here's the reality. In my view, we need to adopt combinations of outreach. The phone on its own is really low yield. Email on its own doesn't break through, and social on its own definitely doesn't as well. So what we need to do is people need to time block. The best times to call senior executives is 7:45 in the morning to 9 a.m. So before people disappear into meetings all day long and call their cell phone. And then from 4 p.m. up until about 6 p.m. is when I would recommend that people call. Thursdays is probably the best day of the week, but the truth is any day that ends in Y, where people are working, is a great time to call people. So what we need to do is we need to phone, leave a voicemail, and we then need to instantly send an email. And that's the basic combo of a triple. So phone, voicemail, email. And I've had CEOs say to me, they've said, Tony, do you know what? You're right. If someone just leaves me a voicemail message, I easily ignore it. If they just email me, I easily ignore it. But if they voicemail me and email me, I feel like I at least owe them a response to the email. And if you want, you can even add to it, text the person, and then even direct message them in Twitter if you actually have their details there. And by all means, send them an email. So on the LinkedIn platform, you can only message people if you're a first degree connection. But if you've got Sales Navigator, you can still send email messages to people as well. But the thing you want is you want people to think, wow, this person is determined. If I don't call them back, they're just going to keep calling. And so long as you have the right narrative, if you're trying to call people and say, let me tell you about me and my company, you are going to be perceived as a sales pest. So the first rule is people need to move away from talking about who they are and what they do, and instead talk about why a conversation should matter to the buyer. So, I was working with an organization today, and one of their people sells into the travel industry. So I was saying, if you're calling a travel agent, you need to call them and say, hey, it's Tony from XYZ. I know you're busy, but the reason I'm calling is I'm working with other travel agents, and I know that the metric of customer satisfaction is really important because it drives referrals and it drives repeat travel business with your travel clients. With some of my clients, they've been able to move the needle on their net promoter scores from here to here. I'm not sure whether you could get the same kind of results, but I'd love to get together and just share how some of those organizations are approaching that. How is your calendar for Thursday? And if you have that kind of conversation, there's value for the person in talking with you well in advance of them ever deriving value from actually becoming a client. So if we feel we provide value, then we're going to be emboldened to drive all of that outreach, because we're going to feel, do you know what? They should thank me for calling them because they're going to get something out of the conversation with me.
And that's a great example of having done your research, that you understand the market and you're demonstrating in your narrative when you're actually speaking to them or you're writing to them. And I in fact add in another method of outreach within that process that you've mentioned. I like a direct mail piece too, because there are so many people now who don't receive letters, that, or even a postcard, something that just differentiates, something that makes you stand out. So it also meets all of these different senses. So you've got the phone, you've got this virtual on your social media, and you've got the messaging, and you've got a hard piece of marketing. And I remember years ago, and I speak about this often, just as an example. I just out of the blue got an email from, it was Dan Kennedy. I don't know whether you've heard of him, a big marketing guy in US. And he was inviting me to a 3-day marketing event. And of course, with one email, just one touch, one interaction, I was never going to say yes to going from the UK to US. What followed that was, and this is a number of years ago, so there wasn't these social media platforms in action as they are today. But what followed that was then another email, a letter. I then got a postcard, and then I got a telephone call. And on the telephone call, I said yes. And the reason I said yes, because each piece of marketing material that I received was full of benefits to me, full of problems that it would solve and the benefits. And each time I received a piece, I kind of metaphorically moved forward and was more interested. And in fact, in the end, when I said yes, it was for myself and my husband to go. So it was flights for both of us, hotel, and all of the associated costs for both of us. And I would never have done that on a one email or even a one telephone call. It was that combination of interactions that moved me. Because I wasn't even aware of it. I wasn't someone who was looking for a marketing event to attend. So it was education. It was education-based type of marketing that really moved the needle for me.
Wow, that's a really powerful story. And sellers today, part of modernizing the way we sell is sellers today need to also become good marketers. No B2B sales rep out there on the face of the planet is going to be able to make their quota, make their sales target based on the leads that are fed to them by an inside sales team or by marketing leads. Everybody needs to be good at creating sales pipelines. So all of those techniques of multiple channels of outreach, running the right kind of combinations. Many people will just make 2 or 3 phone calls, and then they will misinterpret non-responses from people as rejection, when the truth is they're just busy. So it's that 7th, 8th, 9th piece of outreach that will really create the success. So the first big important thing is make sure you have the right value narrative where the person on the other end of the phone or the other end of that email is going to derive value out of an interaction with us. We really need to believe that they should be grateful that we've invested the time with them. And if we've got that in place, we just need to relentlessly, persistently, and in a positive way, never show our frustration, never remind people of our unsuccessfulness in trying to reach them. Never say, hey, this is the 7th message I'm leaving. When you're going to call, never do any of that stuff. Just politely, persistently, just absolutely stay on message and just drive combinations. But they've got to be done within tight time frames. It's phone, voicemail, email, text. Get it all done within 30 seconds. The person's going to go, my beeper's melting down, Batman. I need to respond to this person, or they're just going to keep going.
So that's interesting, Tony. So you would recommend then that all of your activity is done simultaneously?
Yes, I absolutely do, and I've A/B tested a lot of this. So the whole notion of I'll send someone an email and then I'll phone 24 hours later. I'll leave one voicemail, but I won't leave more voicemails because then it makes me sound like I'm desperate. You've got to let go of all of that. You just need to realize my buyer is busy and stressed. They're not lonely and bored and looking for a new friend, right? So trying to friend them as a strategy is a giant mistake. Don't call people up and say, how are you? Are you having a nice day? Forget all that. Just say, hey, John, it's Tony. I know you're busy, but the reason I'm calling is. So get to the point for them and respect their time. But you just got to relentlessly drive combinations to break through, because it's what it takes today. And senior people will respect our persistence if we're carrying the right narrative. If we've got the wrong narrative, if we have the wrong techniques, it'll work against us. So, for example, one of the things to avoid is never send a connection request to somebody in LinkedIn, and then the moment they accept that connection request, you then try and sell to them. You're blasting and spamming them with your message. That's a giant fail. We need to provide value before we try and sell, but we need to get back and focused on the phone as the initial goal. We want a telephone conversation with that person, and text and social and email is all of our activities are designed to get us a phone call. If we send an email and they reply to the email, we should jump on the phone.
Yeah.
If they reply to the text message, we should jump on the phone.
Yeah.
Just every chance we get, just have conversations, get human interaction back into the equation with people.
So let's just go back a step then to connecting with someone on social. So let's say it's LinkedIn. Someone's accepted your invitation to connect. What would your next step be? Because we don't want to start pushing for the appointment at that point.
Yes. So the reality today is nobody should be making cold calls, and yet everybody should have at least 1 hour, ideally 2 hours a day on the phone if they're serious about sales. And yet they should never be cold calling.
Yeah.
You go, well, isn't that a contradiction? Well, no, it's not, because today it's very easy to warm a call up. So, for example, if I was going to take a geo-vertical approach to how I'm trying to build sales pipeline, I'd pick a city or a region. I'd pick a vertical industry. I talked about travel agents previously. In Sales Navigator, you can identify all of those in a geography relatively easily. You save the accounts. You save people of interest in those accounts as leads. LinkedIn is now being a trigger event database for you. It's going to let you know when they publish content, when they're promoted, when they change roles. But then what you do is you time block and you phone people. And I personally wouldn't send a connection request to somebody that I don't know. I think some people can go negative about that. But you can send a message to them in LinkedIn if you're on Sales Navigator. So what I would be doing, I would phone, voicemail, email, phone, voicemail, email. I'd go and look at their LinkedIn profile. If they look back at me, you use that as a trigger event. You simply call them and say, hey, I noticed you had a look at my LinkedIn profile. Now, they may be thinking, well, of course I did. I saw that you looked at mine.
Yeah.
The thing is, at least you've got some context for the phone call. Hey, Frank, I noticed you had a look at my LinkedIn profile. The reason I was wanting to have a conversation with you is, right? So we need to get on the front foot. We need to keep the conversations tight, but just relentlessly drive combinations. It's absolutely the key. If we go linear, if we just got one person in the organization or one channel of outreach, it's not enough. We either don't get any traction, or when we do start to get traction, that one person tries to block us into the rest of the accounts. And one of the trends in selling is there's anywhere from 5 to 7 groups of people or individuals in a larger organization that'll all need to gain consensus together before they're going to buy anyway. So we need to start to build that consensus right from the beginning, because the way we open a sales campaign with an organization is actually more important than how we seek to close the business.
So you would identify a company, and then you would look at the various people within that company and connect with them all and carry out that multiple touch, if you like, in terms of your email, voicemail, phone call.
Yeah, we want to be multi-threaded into an organization. We don't want to be single relationship dependent. And then we want to use multiple channels of outreach to break through. There's some people I've often identified a key person that I'd like to get to that's a potential client, looked in LinkedIn and found I know a few people that are a common connection with that person. Yeah. And again, I've called them. I've just phoned them and said, hey, Bill, how well do you know Mary over at this company? Actually, I know her really well. I say, hey, great. Would you mind if I mentioned your name when I give her a call? And what can you tell me about her? And they say, well, actually, the thing about Mary is she doesn't respond to email, but she will respond to text messages. I
Right.
say, great, have you got a mobile phone number?
Mm.
Right? And then all of a sudden I'm the one person that's driving outreach through the channel that she prefers and responds to. So I'll simply send a text. Hey Mary, it's Tony. I was speaking to Frank earlier today. I've sent you an email, really looking forward to catching up. So again, I'm not trying to sell my message in the text message. I'm trying to get her to read that email. So I'm using multiple channels to get the person to have a look. A lot of people make the mistake of sending an email that's a substitute for the conversation.
Yeah.
Right? The email should be securing the conversation.
And I always talk about this, that, to follow the rule of your initial contact is to sell the appointment. It's not to talk about product. That the product comes like way at the end.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. I absolutely agree.
Yeah, and something else, talking about the rejection, and I think you're absolutely right that people avoid the phone because they don't like the rejection, and none of us do. But if you can reframe that in your thinking, rather than it's no forever, it's not. It's just no, not right now. And it's easy then, if they say no to just start to keep the relationship going. That's no problem. I'd love to keep in touch. Would you be open to receiving my tips and strategies, or can we have another call in 3 months' time? Whatever it is, keep the doors open and keep the relationship going. And I think people miss that. They think it's no forever. And it's just, no, not right now.
Yeah, so I agree with that 100%. The other thing I'd add to that is the thing that just staggers me with salespeople is they say things like, well, I really don't like making phone calls. And my view is, who cares whether you like it or don't like it? Are you committed to your own success or not?
Yeah.
It's like it's like a plumber saying that they don't like putting their arm up a sewer pipe to clear it. I mean, of course they don't like doing that, but I know plumbers who make way more money than doctors, dentists, lawyers, and accountants, right? They make a brilliant living, and they just get over the fact that there's some unpleasant aspects of their job.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and do it anyway. I mean, nobody likes rejection. Nobody likes feeling like they're interrupting someone's day. But if we passionately believe that we're making a positive difference in the lives of our customers, and that to me, I really feel that selling has lost its way in recent years. People are talking like selling is about, crunching prospects and crushing quota and slamming deals, and the truth is, no, it's about helping other people achieve a far better state of affairs in their personal and professional life and in their business. And if we passionately believe that we can help people and that we can provide value for them in a conversation, whether they buy from us or not, then we should be fearless and feel really positive. And we just got to get over the fact that we don't like making the calls. There's lots of things in life that we need to do that we don't like when it comes to diet or raising our kids in relationships. There's things we need to do to keep ourselves in a healthy state in life. And if we're in sales, if you're not on the phone, you're suffering from obesity and you're heading from a heart attack, you're probably going to die. You've got to be making those phone calls every single day. And we've got to go past the sort of discipline of doing the calls to just having the habit. We've got to think, you know what? I'm going to be the first person in the office, and I'm going to spend an hour and a half on the phone before all of the other snoozers that I work with turn up and check their email and then drift out for coffee and chit-chat. I'm going to get a whole day's work before they even turn up. And they'll be wondering, why am I so successful? Well, I'm doing the thing you need to do every single day to build a healthy pipeline.
Yeah, indeed. And we are so on the same page, and you use the word passion, and I love that word. I'm like an evangelist getting out there, I'm like the Billy Graham of sales and marketing. And when people say to me, but Dylis, I don't want to be seen to be pushy. And often I have a marker pen in my hand, because I've got it. If I'm working with a group of people, and I put it down, I go, can I just share something with you? And I say, it is your duty to give people the opportunity to say yes or no, not right now. You have no right to make that decision as to whether they go, whether you're going to be rejected or not. You have to give them the opportunity. And then I tell them the story about my father who went bankrupt when I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant at what he did, but he wasn't brilliant at bringing clients in. Mm. And it was absolutely tragic. He lost everything. He lost his business, his vehicles, his employees lost their job. He lost the house. And he was in such a state with all of this that it took him over the edge. He was a drinker anyway, and it took him right over the edge. And we ended up leaving our lovely house with a 30-mile view across the valley and going into what we call a council house here in the UK, where we pay rent. And he ended up in my grandfather's garden shed for a week and a caravan for 3 years. Then him and my mother got back together, and he died in bed next to her. He had a massive heart attack at 52. Now, if someone had that passion in those early days of my father's business to say, let me show you how to bring in more clients into your business.
Yeah. And
how how you, Ian, my father, can help people with the service that you have. Let's talk. But nobody did. And so I tell that story when I'm with my salespeople or business owners who are doing their own selling, that you have to find that passion within yourself and have the mindset that says it is my duty to give people the opportunity to say yes or no, not right now.
Because I really agree with you. That is such a powerful story. Yeah. It's such a powerful story. And, every seller out there, every entrepreneur, every person running a business, they need to understand that the rate at which you can acquire new customers is the thing that's going to fuel your business. And unless you can acquire clients, unless you can do that effectively, everybody else that depends on those sales coming in is going to suffer, whether it's your family or the employees in the business. And selling is a critically important thing in business. People need to take it really seriously. Yeah,
it's the absolute foundation of success.
Yeah,
with prospecting at the beginning of that bolstering it all.
Yeah. And the last thing for me, I know we're tight for time, is that's the thing I find. Most people I talk to around the world, whether it's in London, whether it's in New York or Australia or places in Asia, is most people think they know how to sell. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But the thing they say is their one and only problem, or their biggest problem, is they just don't have enough sales pipeline.
Yeah.
And yet not having enough sales pipeline is not a problem at all. It's a symptom of other things.
Yeah.
They're not executing those daily combinations of activity the right way, where they can smooth the peaks and troughs out in business, and they can create healthy, fat sales pipeline, where then you don't have to actually pressure clients. You don't need to try and force fit anything. You're just working with the natural rhythms of the customer, and you're finding the people where you are best fit, and you're prioritizing your time where there's really good alignment. And selling becomes fun if you do that well. So for everybody listening to this, if you can just suck it up and think, every day I just need to be in the habit of being on the phone at least 1 to 2 hours a day, building my pipeline, not treating the phone like it's covered with spiders, just really embracing it. It'll make every other aspect of business and sales really enjoyable, because I'm taking the stress and pressure out of the whole thing.
Yeah. Tony, this has been absolutely fantastic, and I hope you'll come back and join us again another time and share some more of your wisdom. But for those who are listening or watching, how might anyone get in touch with you?
Yeah, so the best way to find me is in LinkedIn. So just look for Tony Hughes in LinkedIn. My website is RSVP Selling, rsvpselling.com. There's a link to my blog on the landing page there if you scroll down inside LinkedIn. And if you're looking for a keynote speaker for an event, I do a lot of sales kickoffs and keynote speaking. That website is tonyhughes.com.au. Thanks, Dylis.
And also, just to remind people about the Joshua principle, great insights in that book. Tony, thanks again. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye.